Hey everybody, my name's Dr. Scott Giacomucci. I'm a trauma therapist, author, and researcher. And today I wanted to talk a little bit about the connection between trauma and tattoos. Did you know that there's actually some research, a strong connection between people's tattoos and their past traumatic experiences or experiences of loss or death? In this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of that research while also presenting some of a brief history of tattoos in the United States, at least. I mean, think about it. How many people do you know that have tattoos that have some sort of connection back to their own experiences of adversity? I mean, most of the people that I know that have tattoos, their tattoos connect back to some sort of difficulty they faced, a really troubling time in their life, a loved one that died, or some sort of trauma that they survived. Of course, there's plenty of people that get tattoos just because they think it looks cool and there isn't really much meaning behind it, but I think they're probably the minority. The history of tattoos is pretty complicated and complex, and I'm not going to be able to cover all that in this video. So just want to cover some of the basics and primarily the history of tattoos in the United States. So the earliest evidence of tattoos goes back nearly 5,000 years ago. So that's quite a while that tattoos have been around. And tattoos can mean all sorts of different things in different cultures. So there's really a strong connection between culture and tattoos. Some cultures use tattoos for initiations or to mark different statuses within a community or one's role or accomplishments, or they were even used for pilgrimages. Tattoos were used by criminals. Tattoos were used in gangs or in concentration camps, or used to indicate who was a slave even. There's some troubling history with tattoos, of course. Many religions and governments outlawed tattoos for quite a while. It actually wasn't until 2006 that the last state in the United States made tattoos legal, Oklahoma. 2006, that wasn't very long ago, just less than 20 years ago. Some evidence suggests that tattoos were used as medicine, a medicinal practice in ancient Egypt. However, it wasn't until around the Civil War that the first tattoo shops started to emerge in the United States, and they primarily did military tattoos. So even from the beginning, there was a connection between tattoos and trauma, in that primarily military veterans or folks that were in the military were the ones who were getting tattooed. Then they became more popular with sailors, and there's a strong connection back to sailors and tattoos. In the 1920s, many women began getting tattoos for cosmetic reasons, for eyebrows or eyeliner. In the 1930s, many people started getting their social security number tattooed on them so that they wouldn't forget it. And then in the 40s, after World War II, there was a large influx of war tattoos. So again, that strong historical connection between tattoos and trauma or adversity. It wasn't until the 1960s that many of the states began to make tattoos illegal. In the 70s, tattoos became popular with bikers and anti-war protesters. In the 80s and 90s, they started to become more and more popular in broader social circles, and by the early 2000s, tattoos had become quite popular. Now, about 1 in 3 adults in the United States have a tattoo. So that's a pretty high percentage of people that have tattoos. Did you know that tattoos were illegal in New York City between 1961 until 1997? I mean, 1997 really wasn't that long ago. And pretty much anywhere you look, you can find communities who collectively get tattoos related to collective traumas that they've experienced. Things like 9/11, or the Black Lives Matter movement, or Hurricane Katrina, or a number of other collective traumas, wars, conflicts. I think it'd be safe to say that the majority of tattoos have some sort of meaning to the person who got it. Otherwise, why would so many people be spending time and money and undergoing pain to permanently put something on their body? There's got to be a pretty strong desire, something propelling us to do this. There was one research study that found a correlation between the number of tattoos somebody had and the severity of childhood adversity that they experienced, which is pretty interesting. Another study found that tattoos actually help trauma survivors in their healing process, that it helps trauma survivors reclaim a sense of agency, a sense of autonomy over their life, over their body, and helps trauma survivors improve their self-image. For some people, tattoos are a form of protection, or even like a sort of body armor that protects them emotionally or spiritually or socially out in the world. Almost like a sort of defense, a defense mechanism, or a protective quality. Many people in the research on tattoos share about the physical pain of the tattoo, helping them channel their emotional pain from adversity. And there might be something to that. A number of research participants said that tattoos for them were an alternative to self-harm, to cutting or burning themselves, that instead they turned to tattoos as a less destructive way of channeling their emotional pain. And there really might be something to this, because when our body experiences pain, we produce a flood of endorphins, or endogenous morphine, which is a natural painkiller. And so there might be some sort of connection here between the drive to get tattooed, or even for self-harm, and the relief from emotional pain through endorphins, or our body's kind of homemade morphine. For many people, tattoos make invisible wounds or invisible scars, invisible pain, visible for others and for themselves. It's almost like a form of allowing others to bear witness to their pain. And it starts to renegotiate or even reverse some of the shame or stigma that somebody might have related to their trauma. If they're putting it symbolically on their body in the form of something that's beautiful and artistic, something that they chose and something that they created, it might be a way of challenging the shame they feel about the original trauma, or the stigma they feel about what they experienced. For others, in surveys about trauma and tattoos, some people say that it helps them redefine themselves in the aftermath of trauma, that it gives them an opportunity to narrate their healing on their body, that it helps externalize their pain, gives them a way of controlling the narrative about their trauma, and even prompting discussion about it with others, which helps desensitize and avoiding it. I mean, how many people, when they see someone's tattoos, are going to ask them about it? A pretty large number of people. So perhaps there's something inherent about getting a tattoo related to trauma that challenges us to talk about that trauma when people ask us about what that tattoo means. And then there's inherently a meaning-making component of getting a tattoo to symbolize something that we've been through. It symbolically represents our way of navigating that pain or navigating that adversity. One study on grief and tattoos concluded that traumas are an expression of embodied meaning-making, and it includes the themes of creating permanence, constructing control, and symbolizing the bond further elucidated through the meaning-making process represented in memorial tattoos. I thought this quote was really interesting. Embodied meaning-making. This really spoke to me, especially as a trauma therapist that primarily uses experiential and body-based interventions. Tattoos are a way of using our body to make meaning of past trauma, similar to how we might in somatic psychotherapies, or even in creative arts therapies. My own tattoo artist says that about 9 out of 10 of his clients have some sort of significant meaning behind their tattoos. And when I asked him how many of those clients who have meaning behind their tattoos have a meaning that's connected to trauma or loss, he said at least half of them. So that's a pretty high number of people that are getting tattoos related to trauma or loss or adversity. For many people, they joke or half joke that their tattoo session is kind of like a therapy session. And when I asked my tattoo artist about that, he laughed about it. And he said that he's kind of like a captive listener for however many hours the tattoo takes, and that his clients are constantly telling him all about the meaning behind their tattoos, whether he wants them to or not. It's almost like the tattoo artist is bearing witness to the adversity and the meaning-making process that we're going through when we get tattooed, and that they're attuned. I mean, they're literally attuned to our body and listening to the stories we're telling while we're getting tattoos. You could think of the tattoo artist almost like a co-creator of the concretization of meaning through our body and through the art on our body. When you think about the process of actually getting a tattoo, it takes time, and it really forces us to be in our body. I mean, every tattoo shop in the United States says that you can't be drunk or high while you're getting tattooed. And if we're getting tattoos related to trauma or loss, naturally we're going to be thinking about that trauma, that loss that we went through, that we're symbolically representing through the art, the tattoo on our skin. And so the process of sitting for a tattoo, especially a long tattoo, it really takes time, and it forces us to be in our body, to notice our experiences, to reflect on the meaning behind this tattoo. And it promotes this sort of regulation within our nervous system while experiencing ongoing physical pain from the tattoo. I find for myself when I'm getting tattooed that after a short period of time, I kind of naturally go into like some sort of mild trance where I'm totally present with what's going on, and I'm in my body, and I'm thinking about the meaning behind the tattoo. But there's like, it feels like a sort of shift in consciousness, almost like a sort of conscious suffering that we're putting ourselves through that relates to some sort of vision we have for our future, some sort of intention we have for our lives, or some sort of healing process related to adversity that we're in the midst of. An initiation or a ceremony or ritual of sorts. And when you think about the nature of many religious and spiritual ceremonies, many of them involve some sort of conscious suffering, whether it's fasting or the Sweat Lodge, for example, is a ceremony, a prayer ceremony that involves conscious suffering. Vision quests, where we go out into nature, and there's really countless examples of different religious and spiritual traditions where we're intentionally choosing not to engage in something that would give us comfort and consciously suffering, and using that suffering to fuel our prayers, to fuel our intentions and our visions. And we could think of getting a tattoo as simply another form of conscious suffering related to an existential or spiritual vision or healing. Getting tattooed forces us to face the pain rather than avoiding and numbing it. My own experience has been that tattoos have been a form of individualization, of memorializing loss, of consolidating important ideas or experiences, and marking milestones for myself. I have a handful of different tattoos. One of them relates to a significant loss I experienced. Many of them relate to spiritual or existential ideas that really fuel the way I see the world, or my sense of meaning and purpose in the world. What I find in my work with clients is that tattoos are often a way of getting clients to open up a bit, especially when they're really defended or guarded. In my work with trauma survivors or folks in substance use treatment, sometimes when I have a client who has lots of walls up and maybe doesn't want to be in treatment, doesn't want to talk to me, and has tattoos that are visible, I might simply ask them about their tattoos. And if you've asked anyone about their tattoos, you know that most people really like talking about their tattoos. And if you ask them about it, they usually will start to open up and tell you all sorts of things about their life. Some of the most important things to them, if you simply take the time and ask them about what their tattoos mean. Sometimes I even use a prompt in my therapy groups about tattoos. And I'll say to the group, we're going to go around the circle, and when it's your turn, share with us about the most meaningful tattoo that you have and what it means to you. Or if you don't have any tattoos, if you were to get a tattoo, what tattoo would you get and why? What does it mean to you? And anytime I've used this prompt in a therapy group, it's led to really meaningful and rich discussions about life and death and meaning and purpose and spirituality and religion, motivations and passions and hopes and dreams. There's something really significant about the connection between tattoos and meaning, adversity, and healing. So, next time you get a tattoo, I encourage you to reflect on how some of these ideas, some of these insights might relate to why you're getting a tattoo. And next time you see someone with tattoos, I encourage you to consider asking them about those tattoos, or not judging them for having the tattoos, but instead getting curious and maybe having compassion for that person. As time goes on, it seems like tattoos are only going to become more and more popular within our culture. And so I suspect the research on tattoos and psychology is only going to continue, and the ways that we use tattoos to make meaning and heal and grow will become more and more creative. So if you found this video interesting, I encourage you to subscribe to our channel. And if you have a tattoo, I encourage you to write in the comments and tell us a bit about your tattoo and what it means to you. We'd love to hear from you, and are really curious about all the ways that people use tattoos to heal, to concretize growth or vision, and to navigate adversity or difficulty.